I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption.
Hi everyone, Mike Uyak here for Recipe Redemption. I'd like to talk about tradition with you. There are a lot of things that have become traditional dishes, particularly enjoyed around the holiday, or at least served around the holidays, that became a tradition because of circumstance, habit, and so people continue to do them even long after anyone enjoyed the dish, if in fact they enjoyed it to begin with. Uh, what comes to mind is the love of spam in the Hawaiian Islands. They had a lot of spam during the years of World War II, just because they had GIs and sailors stationed there in Pearl Harbor and among the islands. And so they brought a lot of spam and canned, American canned foods to the islands. And because it was wartime, that's pretty much all anybody had. So they developed a taste for it. And even after the war was over and uh, the economy got better and everyone was generally more prosperous, were more of a middle class. People still continued to eat and enjoy spam because they just got used to eating it and it became a thing. Um, Thanksgiving itself, the entire holiday is really a contrivance. It's purportedly to celebrate the settlement of North America by the Pilgrims, and so we have these, very Puritan-looking images of people with buckles on their shoes and big hats and muskets, hunting turkeys and sharing a meal with the Native Americans. And the truth of the first Thanksgiving is quite different from that, but it's sort of the tradition that we've come to expect. And so even though the settlers at Plymouth Rock, the Pilgrims, did not actually eat turkey at the Thanksgiving dinner. More likely, they had venison, they had eels, things like that. They did not have pumpkin pie because they didn't have any sugar. And really, at the time, the sort of shortened crust that we usually associate with typical American style pies didn't really come around for a good 70, 80 years. So a lot of the foods that we even associate with as traditional Thanksgiving fare, they never actually ate them at the first Thanksgiving. Um, and same thing with Christmas. Uh, Everybody has those sort of tried and true family recipes for things that they still get trotted out even if nobody likes them, like the green bean casserole. Green beans, usually frozen, with canned cream of mushroom soup and canned French style fried onions on top of it, baked to a bubbly goodness and served, and not even touched. But people still make it. This is another one of those. A friend of mine, his family always makes this. The way he typed it up, it's the Abomination holiday egg dish. Sometimes, for short, just known as the Eggy Dish. But consists of 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup, combined with 1 can of Aunt Penny's white sauce, cup of milk, a can of whole mushrooms, a pound of bacon, fried and chopped, and 1 package of chipped beef. You layer this in a casserole dish with scrambled eggs, eggs scrambled with a quarter cup of milk, and it's like a dozen eggs, scrambled with a quarter cup of milk. You alternate layers of this sauce mixture, basically cream chip beef, but it's got bacon and mushrooms added to it. Layer it with the eggs and the sauce, and then put into a 300-degree oven for 1 hour until bubbling. Yikes. But so I didn't have a package of chip beef. I have a jar of dried beef. We've been cooking with dried beef products for centuries. It's a way of preserving your food before you had refrigeration. There's jerky. The colonization and exploration of the North American continent was fueled in large part by pemmican, which is basically dried chunks of beef mixed with fat, and oftentimes nuts, seeds, and dried fruits. And it sort of makes this power bar from hell that you can break apart, throw into a soup pot with some water, and it basically makes soup. Or you can just eat it straight, and it's like an energy bar. Kind of a gnarly energy bar, but hey, it's the frontier. You ate what you had. So all the way up into World War II era, creamed chip beef on toast was a big thing in the mess halls of the Army, and that's where we got the SOS moniker. Soldiers and sailors being as colorful as they are. Some people love it, some people hate it, but it's still become a classic that still is served today in some places, which is why products like this still exist. You can still get dried beef. So, to my mind, we're going to make this. I think it's probably not that bad. My friend has some issues with eggs, which is probably a goodly portion of why he doesn't like this dish. But also, it's basically cream chip beef without the toast. It has, the addition of the mushrooms and the bacon to it. But it's basically cream chip beef with eggs. Just trying the dried beef. It's not bad. Kind of reminds me of pastrami, really. It's a lot of salt. The meat is cured, sliced thin, and then dried. But it's basically cream chipped beef without the toast. So I think it's not going to taste particularly horrible. But I think I see the problem with this already. But let's make it and let's talk about it.
Okay, gonna start off by cooking some bacon. Enough said. My saucier, I'm gonna melt some butter here, and once it stops foaming, add in an equal amount of flour by weight, and then stir that around, make a nice roux. And then going to cook this up until it's a nice light brown roux, to which I'm going to add, and it ends up being about, I'm going to say a couple cups of milk. I'm making my own white sauce. I couldn't find any of the Aunt Penny's white sauce at the store, and when I looked it up online, the only place I could find it was Amazon. Someone was selling it for like $14 a can, and I said, yeah, that's not happening. So I'm making my own white sauce. It's basically a bechamel without the nutmeg. So I just continue stirring this over medium heat until it thickens, and then I add the can of cream of chicken soup and try and get as much as I can out of the can here and stir that in. And here come the mushrooms. I went with sliced mushrooms. I just drained. I thought they would incorporate better. And here is my dried beef. And mine, it actually came in large pepperoni-like slices, so I went ahead and sort of chopped these up kind of roughly, just so they would distribute better in the sauce. Since it doesn't say to layer the beef, it says to stir it into the sauce, so this way it incorporates better. Nope, no need for additional salt. The beef is salty enough. So in lieu of a casserole, I'm just using this ramekin. I only want to make one serving of this. So, as the recipe says, basically alternate layers of sauce and scrambled eggs. I actually scrambled the eggs in the grease that I cooked the bacon in, because why not? Oh, and I did stir the chopped up bacon into the sauce that I'm adding. So, another layer of egg, another layer of sauce, etc., etc., etc. And into the oven it goes, 300 degrees for an hour.
Fresh out of the oven, here it is. The notorious EGG. I don't know, it sounded funny at the time. So first impression is it's still quite goopy. To the point that I think this fork is not really adequate. Flavor's not bad. It's quite salty. I didn't have to actually add any seasoning to this because the dried beef is already quite salty, but got a big egg in there, got some mushroom. I think I see, yeah, a little bit of bacon, and of course the beef. So with the scrambled egg cooked in there, there's a little bit of a custardy texture to it. But overall, it's just very saucy. The only real texture, I mean, the beef still is very discreet. It hasn't disintegrated or anything. The real texture comes from the mushrooms, oddly enough. The canned mushrooms really do hold up. And there's a little bit of smokiness, so you can actually taste the bacon in this. It's not horrible, but there's just something missing. And I think I know what it is. This is still, to me, basically a sauce. I mean, even with the scrambled eggs in there, there's nothing that really gives this structure. So if one were to take a big ladleful and just bloop, plop it down on someone's plate, it is just going to splat. It's just going to splat on the plate, spread out everywhere. It needs something to bind it together, and to me that says starch. And I don't just mean, you know, adding more cornstarch or something so this sets up like a pudding or something like that. Although I suppose you could, but yeah. But in terms of something that will give it structure and a textural component that is missing right now. So since we're looking at basically cream chip beef, you know, we could just go in the direction of just putting this on toast and just saying, you know, it's cream chip beef on toast with eggs, bacon, and mushrooms. So I don't know if we really want to go down the road of trying to find a name for that in the SOS sort of realm. But what else? What other than toast could we do? Could we turn this into kind of like chip beef biscuits and gravy or something else? What other starches do we have? Let's take a look. Fries needed a little salt anyway. It's not bad. Having something starchy definitely helps sort of tame down the saltiness of the dried beef, as well as sort of absorb that fattiness from the white sauce and the cream of chicken soup. I'm going to give the my chip beef Benedict a try here. Get a little yolk going. Ooh, oozy. Ooh. Nothing wrong with that. That's really what it needs, is actually something bland. Something bland, something starchy, like potatoes, like English muffin here. You could also use this as sort of a Urzet's biscuits and gravy, but with the addition of the bacon and the dried chipped beef or dried sliced beef. It was an extra sort of flavor component above the usual sausage gravy that you would use. You could try is to use this sauce as sort of an enchilada sauce. Take tortillas, probably fill them with a semi-melting cheese, something like cotija or something like that, but preferably something that's not too salty already, but will melt a little bit when heated. Roll those up and layer this over the top and bake it. I bet you that would taste pretty primo. I think honestly that's all that this recipe needed, was just something to bind it together, because let's be honest, without the toast, SOS is not SOS. It's just S. So it needs something to bind it together so that it actually comes together as a discrete dish. The recipe as written, it doesn't taste bad. Again, it's a little salty, but it's just kind of gloppy. It comes out of the dish as just this sort of amorphous, jiggly mass, and it might as well be pudding or gravy, and it just needs something to tie it together. You could probably even serve this mixed in with rice, and it would actually benefit from that. If you were to actually mix it with rice and then bake that as a casserole, you could do that. Or pasta. You could actually do this and bake it with macaroni, and it would be kind of like macaroni and cheese. It would set up like macaroni and cheese, but without the cheese. And it would have sort of a more savory, meatier flavor to it. But I think ultimately that's what is needed to redeem this recipe, is just starch, something to tie it all together. So, what do you think? Did I do that right? Am I correct in my assumptions that starch is really all that you need to redeem this recipe? Please comment below and let me know how I did. And if you have any other ideas for future episodes of Recipe Redemption, please don't hesitate to comment and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you later. Thank you for watching. Again, I'm Mike Uyak. I'll see you next time.